Be truth beyond belief. Because all beliefs are definitely, more than likely, inherently a prison of the mind. Last night I dreamed I was back in Folly Beach, looking for a job. I had met people that offered me a job working in construction and as a waiter. Why was I doing that? Why was I trying to get a entry-level job? Was that dream about decades in the past? Or was it that in a capitalist society I haven't fully let go of the idiot perception I had of myself when I was 20 years old with the deadly illnesses I've contracted? Yes, as socially horrific as it is, I'm thankful I was coerced and begged for several years to go into the system of financial codependency because it gave me the space to discern, to think, to study, to read hundreds of books about healing and self-help, Buddhism, and Gnosticism, because I feel that the Matrix is a bait and switch on our social and spiritual needs. We all have a social and spiritual need to serve, to do works, not woe-erk, not sweat work, not grunt work, not goy work, not human farm animal work, but because we are all really, subconsciously we know we are all part of the same thing. We all have a need to help each other, to, if we're healthy, to serve each other. And this has been weaponized and used against us in the Matrix to render us wage, property tax, and mortgage slaves. When we're in flesh sacks, according to Don Miguel Ruiz, we have a need for sex. This has been weaponized into a need for lust or reproduction in our minds. We think we need sex for other reasons than the real reasons we need it. For example, I would not be having such a silly dream if I had experienced a healthy sexual relationship, like having a girlfriend, or I should say a woman friend with privileges, a committed partnership, ideally, because I would have built the self-confidence to understand that there would be no conflict created by the archon around selling books. For example, all the videos I publish could be monetized in the form of books, but my personal archon parasite can keep me insecure. Without that woman, like so many of the young men on Joshua S. John's live streams, they want to tear down the matrix or escape the reincarnation trap, but they do not perceive of any healthy way to interact with the matrix. Whereas John Nolan, having a beautiful, brilliant wife, Christine Nolan, think about it differently, being in what is more than likely a divine hierogamic union and having grown children, they perceive of remaining in their flesh suits in a world beyond slavery. They recently purchased a farm in Tennessee and got goats and chickens, gold and silver investments, and they're getting prepared to physically be sovereign in a realm beyond the bullshit, while also doing the work of exposing it. Well, it may be that they have the very uber rare, healthy beliefs, healthy thoughts about themselves. And when Dr. Bruce Lipton put his hand on my shoulder in the Felton New Leaf, which is now called Wild Roots Market, and told me, when Ignace Loyola, the Jesuit priest, said, "Give me the first 7 years of the child's life and I'll make him a man." What was he making a reference to? It's common knowledge amongst the controllers that they could program us to be what they want if given these years. This is why it's so many fiery rings to jump through for the Hylic or NPC or even psychic souls who become parents. For the amount of psychological pressure put on parents in the USA is something I cannot fathom, but I have seen it exasperate narcissistic personality disorders in those that I have lived with in their house or existed with under the brutal oppression of their personalities. Since now they're gods of other humans' lives, the false self interject programs were dialed way up. Just like I would actually love to spend the rest of my days in Santa Cruz, California, if it wasn't a region of heavily programmed financial slavery and sprayed white cold mornings, perhaps to some degree organic on some level. I'd probably, in May and June, in a morning like this, see the sun in passing. Perhaps it's due to smog, but under the hell realm geoengineering, it just feels like death to me to be in Santa Cruz in June. And so, yeah, I'm not saying this as a pity party, as a collapsed narcissist, to get anyone to like me more This video is risky to me because I'm being vulnerable. I'm letting you know that although I've spoken about shadow work in at least 500 videos, I'm not completely done with it, or near that even. And few are, and because there is some belief still in my subconscious. There is insecurity. There is fears of failure and fears of success. And these have come from experiential knowledge as well as mind control programs. And the last video that was taken down by YouTube, well, they time-stamped that I said Rockefeller had dark ET help in creating the forced compulsory 1 through 12 school system. And of course, it was also because I was angry and trying to speak in code about A.F. Tearing into the medical mafia with a negative attitude is not kosher. But also, of course, having this massive behemoth corporation in charge of the eyeballs that see, I don't feel as I once did that they have me on this police mirrored room. But what they do is, it's like the amount of views it gets is contingent upon, number one, is the thumbnail, is the title something that people search, that people want to know about? And of course, number two is it okay to be said to people? Do I self-censor well enough to have views? Because so long as we do any kind of work, whether it's voluntary or for money, with these flesh suits in this realm, there's going to be self-imposed rulers. We call them archons. We call them secret societies. And the perimeters of our potential and our life scripts and what we dream about can be, and is often, controlled by these controllers or false rulers or psycho-spiritual tyrants. And I'm no different. Why do I keep moving into in-town suites? And I'm probably going to do it again. Because it's not Section 8 housing. But often I can afford it. It's a hotel apartment that I can move into without a rental agreement, a contract, a lease, or putting up with a bunch of insane derogatory rules. Actually, they make you sign a paper with about 100 different strange rules Aside from you can't smoke in it, you can't sunbathe on their property. So I support them also because obviously they created a business plan in the matrix or the business realm that is respectful, that helps the little guy, that serves the needs of the people without too much bullshit. And so, if I want to be financially sovereign before I leave, aside from selling books or courses, it seems to be that it would be necessary to have a healthy relationship with capitalism or money if I'm not willing to and able to spend all the moments in a homestead, farming, gardening, or doing animal husbandry, hunting or fishing, because, as I've said many times, the controllers, the Anunnaki, the inventors of the financial slavery system, the prison whose walls are your rental on your beliefs, your thoughts, are not dumb in the 3D, strictly 3D sense. What's sad is that their tyranny has the ability to pull us all, or most of us, back in. That we agree to our chains, that we agree to be our own prison warden while we're a prisoner, that we have the key in our hand to unlock the cell we're in. And I'm no different. But it is so challenging, especially with several deadly physical illnesses, or if you've agreed to your lease or mortal gauge, if you agreed to whatever you believe, if you agreed to whatever kind of trap that the demiurgos has you in, maybe it requires something like Passio's AAA shadow work method to look yourself actually in the mirror and say, your problems, your limitations, I am not this. Because until the individual can live from the freed mind perspective, the prison keeps growing within and around us. And you might say it will anyway. They're going to keep spraying. They're going to keep running endless wars and endless psyops and trying to terrify us all into obedience. But yes, the inner work might be psychologically the most challenging thing. Like, I used to think that I needed to smoke and ingest cannabis every single day. While that could be plausibly, conceptually a half-truth, it's not true. And I wouldn't be having dreams while I slept if I still did that. I changed that belief. I used to think I needed a woman to be happy, to live, to be creative. Well, again, that might be half projection, half truth. From the perspective of a songwriter, from the perspective of the Taoist yin-yang, from the perspective of tantric or Taoist sexual magic alchemy, from the perspective of a hierogamic union, that is the circuit that creates physical life, a lot of great music and art. But no, unless you have the goal to physically reproduce or to keep the loose farm going, it is not necessary. I've learned that happiness is possible to some degree. It might not be fireworks, so to speak. It might not be that powerful, motivating energy that a healthy heterosexual relationship can be. But if you can figure out how to be happy without that, it also can't tear you down and destroy you when it falls apart either, or when it ends. Look at Nikola Tesla. He devoted his whole life to helping humanity by creating technology that would free us from slavery. And he achieved these goals, seemingly all without a sexual partner or a wife, totally focusing his chi, his energy, on freedom and healing through gadgetry. And it has massively served us. But he died in a cheap stag hotel and had his plans taken by the financiers, the capitalists, the 1% robber barons who he had naively used as finance to finance some of his projects. So, it seems like the martyrdom, there's a sacrificial aspect to it, but is it possible that we can move beyond this era of the hero martyr? Is it possible that you and I can exist and then live beyond beliefs? Or will we be pulled in by creature comforts, laziness, or compliance with coercion and violent tyrants, be they ET or human? Because everything that we are forced to do is very questionable to me. I never ever trusted anything that I was forced to do. Okay, well, aside from the things that I have to do not to be tortured, which seems to be moving into an insulated place here, but I have to eat plants or animal products. I have to consume other animals' placenta to have a healthy brain. I have to question my thoughts. I have to serve. I do have to do work to help others. And if I'm being real, I have to do things for fun. If I'm being real, I have to heal. But when they force these microwave phones on everyone, I got one for my 21st birthday. And I thought it was cool for a while because I was getting subcontractor jobs around Charleston. I was born on my Saturn line on the Descendant in Charleston, and maybe that certainly is a reason why I had this dream last night. And yeah, I was getting jobs in landscaping and remodeling and construction as a subcontractor. But then a few drops of the Atlantic Ocean got in my cell phone and it quit working, and I threw it in a recycle bin and didn't get another one for 20 years. And yeah, I tried to make money. I made all my money when I first got to Santa Cruz, or most of it from collecting cans. And yeah, I taught myself to be a one-man band, and it took me 10 years to earn the money for dinner, but I never gave up. And you might say I flaw in trying to go prematurely DIY. But if it takes having a girlfriend that I'm happy with to have self-confidence, maybe I'll never have self-confidence. If it takes cannabis, if I have to borrow self-confidence from ganja, maybe I'll never have it for real. Of course, that's a defeatist attitude, and that might have been the Archon getting in the conversation. I'm not perfect. I haven't completed my shadow work. But despite what the agencies and the censors and the algorithm itself thinks or wants, volunteering to fill up 10 notebooks and then with rants and spontaneous talks to give almost 700 talks by choice was a decision, effort I made because I wanted to and because I felt like I needed to, I had to, a duty. There's many decisions you will make in life that are both a choice and a necessity. Awareness will never be choiceless while you're in a flesh suit, because that's not at all human. Which is why I had to have this idea pushed in my comment section from someone who claims to be a robot, an enlightened robot from the future. And that's why highly doubtful that they'll ever be welcome back. Because even though, aside from being forced to hunt or fish or farm and garden, prior to the matrix, the slave matrix, the financial system, you had choices. There might have been more minimal, but you did have choices. And now they've tried to turn it into a multiple choice question. For me, the real choice, the real options have often been just like the scene in the movie The Labyrinth, when Jennifer Connelly falls down exasperated, crying, "I don't know which way to go. I'm stuck. I'm lost." And a little claymation snail shows up and says, "Those aren't the only ways you can go." Then she discovers a side trail that's not a part of the main labyrinth that she hadn't seen before. Well, for me, like hitchhiking, dumpster diving, collecting cans, bit shoot, there are other options aside from the prescribed cage. There are other options aside from the beLIEfs shoved down everyone's throat. There are different ways to meet your needs, your goals, and even your dreams. But that doesn't mean the cage is going to go away without kicking and screaming. Just like if you contradict a narcissist, predator, and tell them something they did was wrong, they're not going to let it go without more horrific abuse. Well, my Mercury in Capricorn retrograde in my natal birth chart is like the old man with the whip in my mind. He's not going to just go away and stop telling me I'm wrong. Just go away and stop trying to fill me with insecurity, fear, doubt, or the abusive archon overwhelm. He's not going to just say, "Okay, now you can make your living as a musician or a book writer without anyone helping you, without ever having sex." Because there's levels of physiological awareness, of bodily awareness, of spiritual and mental awareness. There's steps. There's precursors. And I'm no different than a lot of folks. I have tried to skip steps. If I was totally enlightened or mostly totally done with my shadow work, I'd probably have a much larger audience and be able to make money doing this. It's not all just because the Yahweh video or the medical mafia videos. However, I'm not a purveyor and advocate of the fake it till you make it concept. I'm a purveyor and an advocate of the mental, intellectual, psychological bootstrapping, not slavery, but the idea that I must do the very difficult inner work of getting my head out of the cage and freeing myself, my essence, before I leave. And that, I think, is the most important facet of this talk, is that when we have dreams in our sleep, it reveals the integration we have yet to achieve, the inner or shadow work that we need to achieve. And because, do you think that when you die, so-called, when your spirit or essence leaves this body, let's say even if you don't go to the tunnel of white light and get your memories wiped and recycled back, you're still under the subjugation, you're still under control of whatever your essence has been programmed to believe is true. You're still controlled by whatever limitations you have accepted. And so that's why I feel, I discern, I can tell that unless you're insane enough to think you can free this planet, or unless you're brutal enough to think it's okay to reproduce or to start a business or to participate in this financial and psychological hell realm, which I'm not saying I advocate those, but if your goal is to get free after you leave this mortal coil, but even more so if you want to be free now, you have to look under every rock in your subconscious. You have to clear out every cobweb. You have to shine that rear view mirror. Shine that button that makes it so that you can see. Clear the muscles in your neck so that you can turn your head around and see all the obstacles. Because any belief in the matrix, in the financial slavery system that you still hold, any obedience to the guilt-tripping junior god, whether you still have fragments of Abrahamic faith in lies and hell, or you're intimidated into thinking you have to be a financial slave or take an entry-level position, is going to hold you back in school. In a school that could never really be a school. Because every single spirit is held in kindergarten. When the person high on the scale of narcissistic personality disorder gets mad and acts like a 3-year-old, some are shocked when they first see that. Wow, I didn't know you were an emotional 3-year-old. Well, why do you think most humans are spiritually, and when you think about the big picture, they act like 3-year-olds? When it comes to discernment and questioning reality, because they gave us their minds? No, not just that. Because when our memories are all wiped, or mostly wiped after life, what else can we do but go back to kindergarten and be a good goy? And would I be truth in the end for me and you and anyone watching this who's serious about the process, who's serious about becoming free, is to go deep. Go deep into your subconscious mind. And yes, use your nighttime dreams as indicators. What is it I'm hiding from myself? What is it I'm afraid of? Because that is the most terrifying thing to your essence. Because it keeps you stuck in hell. And it keeps you getting recycled. And when I was a teenager, I remember thinking that the couch is the most dangerous place. For me, obviously, laziness is a huge danger. And I remember one of my spiritual teachers saying, oh, they say we're lazy, but that's not it. Because look at the work I've made and look at all the work I did on this channel. Studies have shown that people who are diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, ADD, when put in a task that they were passionate about, they could pay really good attention. Because ADD, like this incredibly overtly obviously mind-controlled, matrix-designed psychological disturbance, oppositional defiance disorder, ODD, odd. Oh, I have that one for sure. I'm odd. Was invented for people who question the filth of slavery. And aside from the cluster B personality disorders and some of the other ones like depression or maybe bipolar, anxiety, many things in the DSM-V, from my opinion, were put in there for control, not because they're real mental illnesses, although some of them are. Because it's all about keeping you in line, keeping you in lies, keeping you in beLIEfs. And when you think about that, whatever name you want to put on it, the anti-life masters of mind control and torture have been at this for nearly up to 1 million years, according to Lisa Renee, that this has been escalating for 1 million years. They're not going to just be like, okay, we're just going to let you free, we'll let you off the hook and let you be free now. No, they're going to dial up the knob of bullshit higher. They're going to come with more psyops, more weather weapon attacks, more physical war, more blowing up stuff, because they're not creative. The real creative people are you and I in our awakened state. The only reason why I'm not financially, spiritually, and mentally sovereign now is because I'm wounded and I haven't healed the wounds. There's still parts of me I need to face. And while that can be really easy for someone external in a different situation to laugh at me and to say, what a hypocrite or what a loser, he's not able to monetize after he's done all that work, or he's a grifter, or he's a wannabe, as I was called in 7th grade. Look at all the people in the New Cage movement who've sold books, who are able to be financially independent and only tell half-truths and only tell things that help you a little bit, but it's really designed to sell books. It's really designed to pump up their narcissistic hero cult. And do you know how many books I've read that had 3 or 5 or 10 pages of healing information couched in 200 or 300, 400 pages of often entertaining but useless stories? It's an industry, but it's kosher because the money system doesn't have its own morality. It doesn't have its own solid foundation. It involves lots of theft, legal theft, like mortgages, legal theft, like gouging and insane taxes. It's morally, spiritually, and socially weak because it was designed by moral coward tyrants like the Anunnaki, who were very, very good at intimidation, at forcing us in their will, but not so good at freedom, not so good at harmony and peace. And I'm not going to flush my own spirit down the drain of oblivion. I'm not going to stay in the police mirrored room. And I'm not going to be live. I'm not going to be a lie. Even if some part of me still is under the persuasion of the liars. Even if I discover in my dreams inner work I've yet to do, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to destroy my hypocrisy. I'm willing to get clear. And no one else can do it for me. No one else can do it for you. Because the real truth, the real freed dome is far beyond given beliefs.